If you've been waking up between 3 a.m. and 5 a.m., this isn't random. This isn't just your sleep being off. No, this is a moment. Because while the world is quiet, while distractions are asleep, while everything around you slows down, something inside of you is being stirred. That early hour, that's not interruption, that's invitation. Some of you keep rolling over, trying to silence it. But what if that wake-up call is actually a call? A call to reset your mind, a call to refocus your spirit, a call to finally hear what you've been too busy to listen to. See, you thought something was wrong with your schedule, but what if something is right with your purpose? So if you keep waking up in that window, 3 a.m. to 5 a.m., don't ignore it. Lean into it. Because what you do in those quiet hours might just change everything about your loud ones. There's a difference between waking up and getting up with purpose. A lot of people open their eyes in the morning, but they don't wake up with intention, they wake up with anxiety. The first thing that hits them isn't clarity, it's chaos. Their mind immediately starts racing. What didn't get done yesterday? What needs to be handled today? Who's expecting something from them? What problems are waiting? Before their feet even touch the ground, their spirit already feels heavy. That's waking up in panic. But when you wake up with purpose, everything shifts. The circumstances may not have changed. The responsibilities may still be there. The challenges may still be waiting, but your posture is different. Purpose centers you. It reminds you that you're not just reacting to life, you're responding with intention. Instead of your day controlling you, you begin to take authority over your day. That early moment, especially between 3 a.m. and 5 a.m., is your opportunity to decide what kind of mindset you're stepping into. Panic is loud in silence. It fills your head with what-ifs, worst-case scenarios, and pressure. It makes everything feel urgent, even when it's not. It pushes you into reaction mode, where you're constantly trying to keep up, but never really getting ahead. And the truth is, panic doesn't come from purpose. It comes from disconnection from peace, disconnection from clarity, disconnection from your deeper assignment. That's why so many people wake up tired, even after sleeping. Their body rested, but their mind never did. Purpose, on the other hand, is quiet but powerful. It doesn't rush you, it grounds you. When you wake up with purpose, you don't feel the need to scramble. You take a breath, you gather your thoughts. You remind yourself who you are and what you're called to do. You may not have every answer, but you have direction, and direction brings peace, even when the path isn't fully clear. That early hour is critical because it sets the tone. Before notifications start buzzing, before conversations begin, before the demands of the day come knocking, you have a window, a sacred, uninterrupted window where you can align yourself. And what you choose in that window matters. If you reach for stress, you'll carry it. If you reach for purpose, you'll walk in it. Waking up with purpose means you don't immediately surrender your mind to everything around you. You take a moment to check in with yourself. You ask, what matters today? What deserves my energy? What can wait? Not everything that feels urgent is important, and not everything important will feel urgent. Purpose helps you discern the difference. It keeps you from pouring into things that drain you while neglecting the things that actually build you. It also means being intentional about what you feed your mind first. Because whatever you consume in those early moments has influence. If the first thing you take in is negativity, comparison, or pressure, it's going to shape your perspective. But if you choose to fill your mind with something that grounds you, reflection, gratitude, stillness, clarity, you're setting yourself up differently. You're not just waking up, you're preparing yourself. And here's the truth: a lot of people don't talk about. Purpose doesn't always come with excitement. Sometimes it comes with discipline. Sometimes it comes with choosing to sit still when you'd rather scroll. Choosing to think deeply when you'd rather distract yourself. Choosing to be present when your mind wants to run ahead. Waking up with purpose isn't about feeling a certain way. It's about deciding a certain way. Because feelings are inconsistent, but decisions create structure, and structure creates stability. You have to understand that how you start your day often determines how you experience your day. If you start scattered, you'll spend most of your time trying to recover. If you start grounded, you'll move with more clarity, even when things get busy. It doesn't mean everything will go perfectly. It means you won't lose yourself in the process. There are people who wake up every morning already defeated, not because they failed, but because they've trained their mind to expect overwhelm. They've gotten so used to reacting that they've forgotten how to lead themselves. But that can change. It starts with one decision: I will not wake up in panic. I will wake up with purpose. And that decision doesn't require perfection. It just requires consistency. You don't have to have an hour-long routine. You don't have to get everything right. You just have to choose in that moment to be intentional, even if it's just a few minutes of stillness, even if it's just taking a breath and reminding yourself, I'm not rushing into today, I'm stepping into it. Because purpose is not about doing more. It's about doing what matters on purpose. When you begin to live this way, you'll notice something shifting. The same day that used to feel overwhelming starts to feel manageable. The same responsibilities that used to feel heavy start to feel structured. Not because they've disappeared, but because you've changed how you approach them. You're no longer being pulled in every direction. You're moving with direction. And that's the power of waking up with purpose. It gives you a sense of control, not over everything that happens, but over how you show up. It reminds you that you are not just a participant in your life, you are a contributor to it. You have a say in your mindset, your focus, your energy. So the next time you wake up in that early window, don't rush past it. Don't treat it like an inconvenience. Pause, recognize the moment for what it is. An opportunity, a reset, a chance to choose differently. Because you can wake up and carry yesterday's stress into today, or you can wake up and step into today with intention. You can wake up in panic, or you can wake up with purpose. And that choice, simple as it may seem, has the power to change everything that follows. There's something powerful about quiet, but most people don't recognize it because they're so used to noise. Not just external noise, but internal noise too. Thoughts racing, worries building, distractions pulling in every direction. So when quiet shows up, especially in those early hours between 3 a.m. and 5 a.m., it feels unfamiliar. Sometimes it even feels uncomfortable. But what you have to understand is that quiet isn't empty. It's full of clarity, full of opportunity, full of space for things you can't hear when life gets loud. That's why you have to protect it. Because if you don't guard that quiet time, something else will take it. It might be your phone, it might be your stress, it might be your habits, but something will fill that space. And not everything that fills your time adds value to your life. In fact, most of the time, the things we reach for first are the very things that scatter our focus. Before we even realize it, we've traded a sacred moment for something that doesn't feed us. The quiet is sacred because it's one of the few times where you're not being pulled. No expectations in that moment. No demands pressing in. No one asking anything from you. It's just you, your thoughts, your breath, your awareness. And in a world where everyone is constantly giving out energy, that moment becomes a place where you can finally gather yourself again. But protecting the quiet requires intention because distractions don't wait until later. They show up immediately. That urge to check your phone, to scroll, to see what you missed, to jump ahead into the day, it's strong. And it feels harmless. You tell yourself it'll just be a minute. But a minute turns into 10, 10 turns into 20. And before you know it, the quiet is gone. The clarity that could have been yours gets replaced with noise you didn't even need. And the truth is, what you allow into your mind first thing in the morning has influence. It sets a tone, even if you don't realize it. If the first thing you do is consume everything from the outside world, you start your day reacting. Your thoughts aren't your own anymore. They're shaped by what you just saw, what you just read, what you just absorb. And now instead of moving with intention, you're moving with influence. That's why the quiet has to be protected, because it's not just about silence, it's about ownership. Ownership over your thoughts, your focus, your direction. It's about giving yourself the chance to decide how you want to show up before the world starts making suggestions for you. There's something else about quiet that people overlook. It reveals things when everything is loud. It's easy to avoid what's really going on inside. You can stay busy, stay distracted, keep moving, and never actually deal with your thoughts. But in the quiet, there's nowhere to hide. What you've been pushing aside starts to surface. What you've been ignoring starts to speak, and that can be uncomfortable. But it's also necessary. Because you can't grow if you're constantly running from your own awareness. You can't find clarity if you never give yourself space to think. The quiet forces you to slow down long enough to recognize what needs your attention, not what's urgent, but what's important. And there's a difference. Protecting the quiet means you don't run from that moment. You lean into it. You sit with it, even if it feels unfamiliar. You allow yourself to be present without immediately reaching for distraction. Because on the other side of that stillness is insight. On the other side of that pause is direction. And here's the thing, once the day gets going, it's hard to recreate that kind of space. The calls, the messages, the responsibilities, the movement, it all comes quickly. And by the time you realize you need a moment to think, it's already crowded. That's why the early quiet is so valuable. It's one of the few times where the world hasn't caught up to you yet. But you have to decide that it matters. Because if you treat it like it's optional, you'll give it away every time. You'll trade it for convenience, for habit, for temporary comfort. But if you recognize it as sacred, you'll start to guard it differently. You'll become more aware of what you allow into that space. You'll become more intentional about how you use that time. Protecting the quiet doesn't mean you have to do something complicated. It doesn't mean you need a perfect routine or a long list of actions. It simply means you honor the moment. You don't rush past it. You don't fill it without thinking. You allow it to be what it is, a space for you to reset, to prepare. Because when you protect that quiet time, you're not just preserving a moment. You're strengthening your ability to focus. You're training your mind to slow down when everything else is speeding up. You're creating a foundation that helps you stay grounded, even when the day becomes unpredictable. And the more you do it, the more you'll start to notice the difference. You'll feel less scattered, less reactive, more centered. Not because life got easier, but because you gave yourself the time to align before stepping into it. There are people who spend their entire day trying to find peace, not realizing they had access to it in the morning, but gave it away too quickly. They look for calm in the middle of chaos when they could have carried calm with them from the beginning. That's what protecting the quiet does. It allows you to carry something into your day instead of constantly searching for it. So when you wake up in that early window, don't treat the silence like something to escape. Don't rush to fill it. Don't hand it over to distractions that won't serve you. Recognize it for what it is, a sacred opportunity. Protect it. Because what you do with that quiet time doesn't just affect that moment, it shapes everything that comes after it. And if you learn to guard it well, you'll start to walk through your days with a kind of clarity and steadiness that noise could never give you. What you feed your mind in the first moments of your day matters more than most people realize. Before you speak to anyone, before you step into responsibilities, before the world starts making demands, you are already consuming something. And whatever you consume first doesn't just pass through you, it shapes you. It influences how you think, how you feel, how you respond. That's why feeding your mind before the world, this isn't just a good idea, it's necessary. Because whether you're intentional about it or not, something is going to feed your mind. The question is, will it be something that builds you or something that drains you? Most people don't think about it. They wake up, reach for their phone, and immediately plug into everything happening around them. News, messages, social media, opinions, comparisons, pressures, it all comes rushing in. And before they've had a chance to form a single independent thought, their mind is already full. Not with clarity, but with noise. Not with direction, but with distraction. And then they wonder why they feel overwhelmed before the day even begins. It's because they allowed the world to speak first. When the world speaks first, it sets the agenda. It tells you what to worry about, what to focus on, what matters, what doesn't. It fills your head with urgency that may not even belong to you. It pulls your attention in 100 different directions, and now instead of moving with intention, you're reacting to everything that comes your way. But when you choose to feed your mind first, you take that power back. You decide what enters your thoughts. You decide what influences your mindset. You decide how you're going to show up before anything else has the chance to shape you. And that decision, simple as it may seem, creates a shift that carries throughout your entire day. Feeding your mind isn't about stuffing it with random information. It's about being selective. It's about choosing things that ground you, things that sharpen you, things that align you. It could be a moment of reflection, a few minutes of reading something meaningful, sitting in stillness, organizing your thoughts, reminding yourself of what actually matters. It's not about quantity, it's about quality. Because a few intentional minutes can do more for your mindset than hours of mindless consumption. You have to understand that your mind is like a filter. Whatever you put into it becomes the lens through which you see everything else. If you fill it with negativity, everything starts to look heavy. If you fill it with pressure, everything starts to feel urgent. If you fill it with comparison, nothing feels like enough. But if you fill it with clarity, your decisions become sharper. If you fill it with focus, your actions become more intentional. If you fill it with something that centers you, you carry that sense of balance into everything you do. And that's why the timing matters so much, because early in the morning, your mind is more open. It hasn't been pulled in different directions yet. It hasn't been cluttered with responsibilities or distractions. It's in a state where what you feed it has a deeper impact. It settles in quicker. It sticks longer. It shapes your baseline for the rest of the day. So if you're going to be intentional at any time, let it be then. The problem is many people underestimate how easy it is to lose control of that moment. It doesn't take much. One notification, one quick scroll, one glance at something that pulls your attention, and suddenly you're no longer feeding your mind, you're letting it be fed. And once that happens, it's hard to reverse. Because now your thoughts are scattered, your focus is divided, your energy is already being spent on things you didn't choose. And even if you try to regain control later, you're doing it from a place of reaction instead of intention. That's why discipline matters here, not extreme discipline, not perfection, just enough awareness to pause before you reach for the familiar habits. Just enough control to say, not yet, I'm not giving my mind away this early. That small decision creates space. And in that space, you can choose something better. Feeding your mind first also builds mental strength over time. It trains you to be less dependent on external input and more grounded in internal clarity. It helps you think for yourself instead of constantly being shaped by everything around you. And in a world where information is everywhere, that ability is powerful. Because not everything you hear deserves your attention. Not everything you see deserves your energy. And not everything that's loud is important. But if you don't take time to center yourself first, you won't be able to tell the difference. You'll chase things that don't matter. You'll stress over things you can't control. You'll invest energy into things that don't move you forward, all because you allowed your mind to be filled without being filtered. Feeding your mind first changes that. It gives you a reference point, a sense of direction, a reminder of who you are and what you're focused on. So when the noise does come, and it will, you're not as easily pulled in. You can engage with what's necessary and ignore what's not. You can move through your day with intention instead of being dragged through it by distraction. And it doesn't have to look the same every day. Some days it might be quiet reflection. Some days it might be writing your thoughts down. Some days it might be simply sitting still and breathing, allowing your mind to settle before anything else tries to occupy it. What matters is the choice to prioritize your mind before the world gets access to it. Because once the day starts moving, it doesn't slow down easily. And if you haven't grounded yourself early, you'll spend most of your time trying to catch up mentally, trying to regain focus, trying to find clarity in the middle of everything else. But when you feed your mind first, you don't have to chase clarity. You carry it with you. You step into your day already anchored, already aware, already intentional. And that changes how you handle everything that follows. So the next time you wake up, especially in those early hours, don't rush to connect with everything outside of you. Take a moment to connect with what's inside first. Feed your mind something that strengthens you, something that steadies you, something that prepares you. Because if you don't, the world will gladly do it for you. And the difference between those two approaches is the difference between living your day with purpose and simply reacting to whatever comes your way. There's a rhythm to a life that moves with intention, and it often starts in the moments nobody sees, long before the conversations, the decisions, the responsibilities, and the noise of the day begin. There is an opportunity to align yourself in a way that changes everything that follows. That alignment can be summed up in 3 simple actions: pray, plan, and position yourself. Not randomly, not occasionally, but intentionally, especially in those early hours when your mind is clear and your environment is still. Prayer is where it begins, because before you can manage anything around you, you have to settle what's within you. A lot of people try to jump straight into action, straight into solving, straight into doing, but they skip the moment that grounds them. And when you skip that, you carry unnecessary weight into everything else. Prayer isn't about performance or saying the perfect words. It's about connection. It's about creating a moment where you step out of the rush and into stillness, where you acknowledge that you don't have to carry everything by yourself. In that space, something shifts. The pressure to have all the answers starts to ease. The need to control every outcome begins to soften. You move from a place of tension to a place of trust. And that doesn't mean your problems disappear. It means they no longer define your mindset. You're not approaching your day from stress anymore. You're approaching it from steadiness. And that steadiness becomes the foundation for everything else. But prayer alone isn't the full picture. Because after you center yourself, you still have to be intentional about how you move. That's where planning comes in. And planning isn't about overloading yourself with a long list of tasks. It's about clarity. It's about deciding ahead of time what actually matters. Too many people let their day be shaped by whatever shows up first. They respond to every message, every request, every interruption. And by the end of the day, they've been busy but not effective. Planning helps you avoid that trap. When you take even a few minutes to think through your day, you start to see things differently. You begin to separate what's urgent from what's important. You recognize what deserves your energy and what can wait. You give yourself direction instead of drifting from one thing to the next. And that direction doesn't just make you more productive. It makes you more focused. It reduces the mental clutter that comes from trying to juggle everything at once. Without a plan, it's easy to feel overwhelmed. Everything feels equally important because nothing has been defined. But when you plan, you create structure. And structure brings a sense of control, not over every outcome, but over your effort, your time, your attention. It allows you to move through your day with intention instead of constantly reacting. Then comes positioning yourself, and this is where everything you've done starts to take shape in a practical way. Because it's one thing to feel centered, and it's another thing to know what needs to be done. But positioning is about putting yourself in the right place mentally and physically to follow through. It's about asking yourself, am I setting myself up to succeed today, or am I making it harder than it needs to be? Positioning shows up in small but powerful decisions. It's how you organize your environment. It's how you prepare for what's ahead. It's how you manage your energy. If you know your day will require focus, you position yourself away from distractions. If you know something is important, you give it the time it deserves instead of squeezing it into leftover moments. If you know your mindset needs to stay strong, you become aware of what could pull you off track and you guard against it. A lot of frustration comes not from lack of ability, but from poor positioning. People have the potential, they have the ideas, they even have the desire, but they don't set themselves up in a way that supports execution. They wait until they're already in the middle of chaos to try to adjust, and by then it's harder. Positioning is about being proactive instead of reactive. It's about thinking ahead just enough to make your path smoother. When you combine these 3, prayer, planning, and positioning, you create a powerful flow. You start grounded, you move with clarity, and you act with intention. You're not just hoping the day goes well, you're actively shaping how you show up in it. And that changes everything, even when things don't go perfectly. Because let's be honest, not every day will unfold the way you expect. There will be interruptions. There will be challenges. There will be moments that test your patience and your focus. But when you've taken the time to align yourself early, you handle those moments differently. You don't fall apart as easily. You don't lose direction as quickly. You're able to adjust without losing yourself. That's the difference between being prepared and being caught off guard. And the beauty of this approach is that it doesn't require hours. It doesn't require perfection. It just requires consistency. A few intentional moments of prayer to center yourself, a few focused minutes of planning to guide yourself, a conscious effort to position yourself for success. That's it. But those small actions done regularly create a ripple effect that touches every part of your day. You begin to notice that you're less reactive, less scattered, more focused, more steady. Not because life has become easier, but because you've become more aligned. You've taken ownership of the part you can control, how you prepare, how you think, how you position yourself. And that's what makes those early hours so valuable. They give you the space to do this without interruption. They give you the chance to align before anything else tries to pull you out of alignment. They give you a head start, not in speed, but in clarity. So when you find yourself awake in that window, don't ignore it. Don't rush past it. Use it. Pray until your mind settles. Plan until your direction is clear. Position yourself so your actions match your intentions. Because when you do that, you're not just starting your day, you're setting it up. And when your day is set up with that kind of intention, you don't just move through it. You move with purpose, with clarity, and with a confidence that comes from knowing you didn't leave your mindset to chance. What you do early doesn't stay early, it follows you. It shows up later in ways you don't always immediately connect, but it's there. In your attitude, in your decisions, in your patience, in your focus. The way you begin your day has a way of echoing through everything that comes after it. That's why what you do in those early hours isn't small, it's foundational. A lot of people treat the beginning of their day like it doesn't matter. They rush through it, ignore it, or fill it without thinking. They assume they can just figure it out later, that they can adjust as the day goes on. But the truth is, later is often influenced by earlier. And if you don't take control of the start, you'll spend most of your time trying to recover in the middle. Because whatever you carry into your day becomes the weight you move with. If you start your day rushed, that rushed feeling doesn't just disappear, it lingers. It affects how you respond to delays, how you handle interruptions, how you make decisions. You feel like you're constantly trying to catch up, even when you don't fully understand why. And it's not always because of what's happening in the moment. It's because of how the day began. The same is true for your mindset. If your morning is filled with distraction, your focus will be weaker. If your morning is filled with pressure, your patience will be thinner. If your morning is filled with negativity, your perspective will be heavier. You don't just experience those things and move on, you carry them. They settle into your thinking and they influence how you interpret everything else. But the opposite is also true. If you start your day with clarity, that clarity follows you. It shows up in how you prioritize, in how you communicate, in how you respond under pressure. If you start your day with calm, that calm becomes something you return to when things get busy. If you start your day with intention, that intention shapes your actions even when the environment around you becomes unpredictable. That's the power of what you do early. It becomes what you carry later. And most people underestimate how much that carryover matters, because by the time the middle of the day arrives, things are already in motion. You're already engaged in conversations, already making decisions, already responding to situations. At that point, you're not starting fresh, you're continuing from wherever you began. And if you began scattered, you're continuing scattered. If you began grounded, you're continuing grounded. That's why the early hours are so important. They give you a chance to decide what you're going to carry before anything else has a chance to load you down. You have to think of it like this. Every day, you're picking up something in the beginning. It might be intentional or it might be accidental, but you're picking up something. It could be focus or it could be distraction. It could be peace or it could be stress. It could be clarity or it could be confusion. And whatever you pick up, you don't just hold it for a moment, you walk with it. That's why being intentional early is less about perfection and more about awareness. It's about asking yourself, what am I choosing to carry today? Not in a complicated way, not in a pressured way, but in a real, honest way. Because once the day gets moving, it's harder to put things down. It's harder to reset when you're already in the middle of everything. But when you start with intention, you reduce the need to constantly reset. You move with something steady inside of you. There's also something important to understand about energy. Your energy is limited. You don't have an unlimited supply to give to everything and everyone. And when you start your day without direction, you tend to spend your energy on things that don't matter as much. You react, you respond, you adjust, you chase, and by the time you get to what actually matters, you're already drained. But when you're intentional early, you manage your energy differently. You protect it, you direct it, you give your best to what deserves it instead of giving pieces of yourself to everything that shows up, and that changes your outcomes. Because it's not just about how much you do, it's about how you do it. Two people can have the same responsibilities, the same opportunities, the same challenges, but get completely different results based on what they carried into their day. One moves with clarity and focus, the other moves with stress and distraction. And over time, those differences add up. Small beginnings create bigger patterns. That's why you can't dismiss those early moments as insignificant. They may feel quiet, they may feel simple, they may even feel unnecessary, but they're shaping you in ways you don't always see immediately. They're building habits, reinforcing mindsets, creating patterns that will show up again and again. And if you're not careful, you can build patterns that work against you without even realizing it. Waking up late, rushing through your morning, reacting to everything, skipping any moment of reflection. It might feel normal, but it creates a pattern of inconsistency. It trains your mind to operate in a state of reaction instead of intention. And that pattern doesn't stay in the morning. It shows up in your decisions, your focus, your discipline. But when you choose to be intentional early, you create a different pattern, a pattern of awareness, a pattern of control, a pattern of starting from a place of alignment instead of chaos. And over time, that pattern becomes your default. You don't have to force it as much. You don't have to remind yourself as often. It becomes part of how you operate. And that's when the real shift happens. Because now, you're not just having better mornings, you're having better days, not perfect days, but more consistent ones, more focused ones, more intentional ones. Days where you feel like you're actually moving forward instead of just getting through. All because you decided to take those early moments seriously. So the next time you find yourself awake in that window, don't treat it like it doesn't matter. Don't brush it off as something small. Recognize it as a starting point, a chance to choose what you're going to carry. Because whether you realize it or not, you're going to carry something. The question is, will it be something that strengthens you or something that weighs you down? What you do early determines that. And what you carry later will always reflect the choice you made in the beginning.